send me.
Okay, I'm gonna send a copy.
So you had COVID yourself?
So I had COVID this year, February,
Uh-huh.
and it came very, very suddenly. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't really feel anything. I felt a little warm during the day. I met up with my cousin, and then when I went home, I started already feeling feverish.
Mm-hmm.
And during the night, I woke up around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., got out from my bed and wanted to measure my temperature, take my
Mm-hmm.
fever, take my temperature, and I collapsed.
Oh
So
my God.
I blacked out, and my wife came over because I we separated in the flat, and I went into a separate room, and so she just
Mm-hmm.
heard me banging against the door and didn't know what was going on. So she came and saw me pretty much having a seizure type of deal for about 20-25 seconds. And then so we thought that that was pretty serious. So okay, we called an ambulance and they did a quick test on me when they arrived. That was negative. Then they took me to the hospital to the and then there they took a lot more tests. They did
Mm-hmm.
one more quick test. They did a blood gas test, and they did a PCR as well, and everything was negative. So they
No.
didn't find anything, and also did EKG, um, ultrasound on my
Oh.
lungs, and just nothing. They did blood tests, and that came back negative as well. They measured something with my heart, some metric, but they couldn't really measure it. But I was there, and this is, I think, everywhere. The medical system was just under a lot of pressure during these times, and
Mm-hmm.
I was there for I think 8 or 9 hours, just among other COVID patients who were tested and were positive. And so I thought that okay, now I have to leave here. So I didn't wait for that last metric, but I left on my own consent. And and so I went home and I waited it out. So for 1 week, I nothing was really changing. I had fever during the days, and I could feel my sinuses and just my face burning really
Mm-hmm.
bad. So the virus in there, and then that expanded just to my brain, and my whole head was not even like headache, but like deep burn from within.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
my brain was I felt that my brain was just really shutting off. It didn't really want to do anything. It didn't want to think or come up with any ideas. um, Throughout my life I read and learned a lot, so my brain was very active all the time. And for these 2 weeks that I had actively the virus, it just didn't do anything. I was watching movies and then blacked out here and there, but that
Mm-hmm.
was it. And so at the end of the 2 weeks, I got some antibiotics, and those didn't really do anything. But on the second week, I was sent to do an X-ray for my lungs, and so there they found out, okay, I have pneumonia, and uh,
Okay.
and then they would have just given me the same antibiotic. So it was good that I already took it.
But they
But
didn't find the coronavirus
no, I was still
in your
considered
liver.
negative.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm.
but and I had most of my smell and most of my taste.
Was gone.
Looking back, yeah, yeah. So I didn't have the usual symptoms, if you wish, but I was just not feeling well, and I couldn't put a finger on what it was, because for 2 weeks and antibiotics weren't really helping. So with the last pill, my fever started going down, and this was seven pills. So
Mm-hmm.
one, uh, just one dose of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the 2 weeks, my fever started going down, and I started feeling better. But after consulting with a doctor who specializes in COVID, like post-COVID patients, she said that the antibiotics should have worked pretty much first or second day, if they were really a major helper in the whole process. But she thinks that I might have gotten, like, my immune system might have gotten over it by the end of the 2 weeks. So I felt shortness of breath during the time, but mostly these muscle fatigue, just dizziness, no hunger, and just feeling nauseous all the time. Like, I tried to force feed myself. I had an athletic background, so there were times when I was force feeding myself, so that wasn't far from me, but it didn't really feel good. So I wasn't really hungry. And I heard a lot of people say that as well with post-COVID as well, that they just don't feel like eating, and they're just losing weight, and that's that as well.
It's different for everybody. I ate
Yeah,
a
it's
lot
crazy.
during the infection, and after I put on 7 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah, but at least I was well fed, you know. But yeah. Yeah, but the thing in your brain, I felt it a lot too. First day, I felt this stimulation in my brain. It wasn't shutting down. It was like super excited, you know, different. And I never stopped working, which I think was pretty bad. You know, that I think that's why I got this long COVID afterwards.
Oh, okay.
I worked throughout every day.
And yet again, what the circumstances for people are also with long COVID, that a lot of people have to go back to work because they are set up that way. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, I couldn't stop. I could, but I would probably go broke. You know, I had like 60 people in my office waiting for me. And I didn't even tell them I was sick because we were working remote. So
okay.
And the problem was my COVID never got too bad. I didn't have a fever. I felt hot, but on the thermometer, you didn't see anything.
Yeah.
I felt very hot. And afterwards, I learned that you can have internal fever and it doesn't show in your thermometer. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also the nervous system, when it burns up, your temperature is just the same. So your sympathetic nervous system lights up, and your internal workings are just on. It's like same as having a hard workout.
Yes.
It's the same fight-flight response
Same
from the body.
Stress.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm telling you, that's just so you figure out what happened to me. I own a design company. Like I told you, it's 100 people now. It was 60 people. It grew a lot during the pandemic. And when I first got sick, I told my doctor, should I stop working? And she said, it's going to be good for you if you work. And I said, okay. I don't think she knew what I did and how much pressure it was, you know. So, and after I got better, I thought, well, I'm feeling fatigue and short breath and everything, but it's going to go. I was used to relying a lot on my body. I had those allergies, but I always had a lot of energy. And I just used it up, everything, you know.
Right.
Even now, 15 months after, I never took a week off. So I know it's part of it, you know. And things just happen. You know, we had a fire in my apartment in July.
Oh, wow.
We had to exit the apartment. We had to do a whole 3 months renovation. I was living at my mother-in-law's house. So it was a very crazy, stressful year, you know. And now I'm just can't seem to go back to the balance I had before. I still feel breath issues and fatigue. I haven't exercised in 15 months. My whole body is like, I don't recognize it. I was very fit before, very fit. So it's hard.
Yeah. I totally understand. And like part of the protocol is going on these perception issues. How we perceive ourselves, how we perceive ourselves in our surroundings, how we perceived ourselves, who we are actually, and how we can start out from what we have, because
Yeah.
our body can heal a lot. It's a healing machine. So if we give the right circumstances, and this is talked about, just everywhere, even with business, if you're among the right people in the right circumstances, you can thrive. If you're among not the best people, then you
Yeah.
can
Then.
crash.
Yeah. Hmm.
Exactly. And same thing with the with the physical side. If you give yourself, if you give your body and the right circumstances and the right surrounding, and you can read the feedbacks of your body, how it's feeling, then you can gradually get better and better and better, step by step. But it's really about getting to know your body and reading the signals. So for me, after COVID was out of my system, the same thing with the nervous system and the brain was just there. The brain fog, as a lot of people talk about it. It was just a narrow, focused state that I felt. Is just like peeking through a keyhole. And then, so the peripheries of my brain and just thoughts, the neurons just weren't firing. That's how I felt. And then eventually it started coming back, body regenerating, sleep got better and better. I slept a lot. And I think this is one of the main issues. If somebody is not sleeping well, then the nervous system is just unable to recover properly.
Yeah, I had long periods of not sleeping well at all, because when I get those attacks, I know now it's histamine and other inflammation triggers. You just don't sleep, your cortisol is
And
off and you go,
yeah, and
and for me, it
so
never gets as bad as asthma, it's just a short breath thing, but you can't sleep.
yeah, but this is a good like lead into the first part of the protocol, that the symptoms as you described, shortness of breath and gasping for air and getting hot and feeling panicky, it's it's just basic sympathetic response of the
Uh-huh.
nervous system, which is the same for mostly anything. Like if somebody attacks you in at night from a little narrow street, you would have the same response.
But it just goes on, like it's not immediate, right? Yeah, it never.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's, yeah.
And then if you have a physical fight, like that would be the normal process of the nervous system. Something comes in, it switches into fight and flight, it fights that thing off, and then it cools
And
down.
then it goes back.
Exactly. But with COVID, the interesting part that I noticed and that a lot of people talked about is they get cleared from COVID, so their lung functions come back to normal, and still they are short of breath. Still they
Exactly.
have the shortness of breath.
Exactly.
So the lung capacity and the ability to absorb oxygen through the lungs goes back to normal parameters. But then again, something is stopping uh, that oxygen from actually landing in the cells and the muscles. So I
Oh.
looked in, yes, because there are actually two circles of air uptake or oxygen uptake. One is from the air to our bloodstreams, and that is going through the lungs. But the other circle is going from our bloodstreams to our cells and muscle, and
And that's where it's not going.
that's where it's stopping. So the body has enough oxygen actually, but it's unable to get it out of the
Process.
hemoglobin. Exactly. To get enough acidic actually to dissolve out that oxygen from our bloodstream. The process which would work in normal state of bodies is actually elevating the CO2 levels to to levels where it triggers a sympathetic response hard enough that the oxygen gets dissolved. When the oxygen gets dissolved, we go back to alkaline. Then we can breathe in oxygen again. So this is like a very balanced state of CO2 and oxygen, which is just as we breathe out and breathe in, the two gases just switch sides just a tiny bit. But these elevations of CO2 is enough for us to trigger the release of that oxygen.
Okay.
So what I think is happening during COVID is that they did researches on COVID patients, and because their lung capacity is limited, their CO2 levels go up, but they stay high. So because the capacity of the lungs just decreases, they can't breathe in oxygen. So it's like breathing through a straw, basically. If you do that, your CO2 level will just go up. But the problem is that it stays high. When it stays high, and because our body is set up to, like, we have a lot of receptors for CO2, but we have just minuscule receptors for oxygen. So we mostly detect if something is wrong with the CO2, and then we can modulate our body to attack that. And so because people suffer through a high level of CO2, these receptors normally, if with any hormone is the same, for example, with coffee is the same thing. If we get a lot of a huge dosage of some chemical, then our receptors just go back.
They go
Because
back how they shut down, like they don't
yeah,
get it anymore.
they die off, basically. Because the levels are just so high that they are constantly in that I'm freaking out state, but the CO2 levels are so okay. I'm going to accommodate myself to these levels, so I'm going to reduce the number of receptors.
So you don't take CO2 right anymore. You don't have receptors working right for CO2 anymore.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So
because
after
it stayed high for a long time, and it deregulated my system for CO2 uptake. Okay.
You got it. Make sense?
It makes sense. Yes.
And so after COVID, lung capacity comes back. You can uptake the oxygen again. So you have more of the oxygen. But then again, the CO2 levels, which are to that O2 level, they never go high enough to trigger those now decreased number of receptors for CO2.
Okay.
To start the cycle.
So
to
you
release
killed
the
off
oxygen.
your CO2 receptors.
Yep.
And then you don't take enough CO2, and then you get deregulated in your system O2 versus CO2.
And so you have enough oxygen, but you actually cannot breathe. That's why
you feel like there's always not enough.
Exactly, not enough oxygen. That's getting to your system. So what is the body doing? Okay, let me breathe more.
And then you go.
So, exactly. So what we're doing is,
and then your sympathetic goes up too, because you're like,
right. But what's happening with the gases? We dump the CO2 that we started building up, but is not enough for us to release the oxygen, and we start breathing a little more heavily.
And not
so we
expiring.
It's the same as with panic patients who freak out. They start breathing a lot, so they give them a paper bag to breathe through that to elevate the CO2 levels back up, because if they keep gasping for air, they just pump up the O2 levels, and then they will.
That's the paper bag logic. Okay.
Exactly. So what we need to do is to actually proactively create a state, an internal state, where we elevate the CO2 levels enough so we can trigger those receptors properly. We can teach the body to hit those levels, to work those receptors that we actually have, and then start working back from there, releasing the oxygen getting our bodies to a more relaxed state, because we can release that oxygen, we can oxygenate our bodies, and then afterwards we can relax, we can sleep well, and we can build back the receptors.
Okay.
But for
So,
that, we need to
okay, you
really
did this
heavily trigger
yourself
the ones that we have.
and you got
Sorry?
better. You did this yourself and you got better because you were
Yeah,
in this state. Okay. Mhm.
yeah,
You
because
only
I
had
I
the short breath. What did you have other symptoms or?
I had the I had the brain fog, mostly
Mhm.
the dizziness afterwards,
Muscle pain,
muscle weakness, not
weakness,
that much pain.
but
I
weakness. Yeah, I had that.
Yeah,
It's, I have
the
that.
pain,
It's horrible.
yeah, and you know, I and myself, I was I am a sporty man, but I was more of that before. But afterwards, it was just weird to see that. Okay, it's like really hard to lift up even the smallest weights,
I know.
and it's just the same thing. It's coming from the nervous system that got burned up.
Hmm.
But if the first step with COVID is really getting the breathing back, just because the breathing is a feedback loop from our nervous system. So whatever state we are in, it shows up in our breathing,
Hmm.
and however we breathe, it has an effect on our nervous system.
Okay.
So that's why, you know, yogis, that's why all breathwork therapists and meditation experts, they go through breathing, because that's the remote control for our nervous system.
Hmm.
So first of all, and I think that's the main point, we need to get that back on the proper into the proper state. And if we do that, then we can also sleep better, and then start working with uh, working on capacity, working
Hmm.
on just everything else that uh, that is going to lead us to get healthier, to get better. And that can
Hmm.
be any symptom, because if we get some severe symptoms, there's really some severe symptoms out there in the group. Yeah, it's just every day something new. Um, for those, people do get treatments for those specific symptoms. If they cannot sleep well, if they cannot, you know, dial back and allow their bodies to heal and to use up that treatment that they're getting for that symptom, then they're just gonna get that. Then they're just stuck. Then no treatment will ever work. So
Uh-huh.
that's why I think a very
That's
crucial
more or
thing,
less where
even
I am. Yeah. Hmm.
right for any symptom, is to get proper quality and amount of sleep.
Hmm.
And one thing that a lot of people talk about, and I think you said it as well, that before sleep and during sleep, there can be we can call it panic attacks, but some hypertension of the nervous system that
Hmm.
is going out of hand.
Yes. Hmm. Even if you're
So
not like nervous with something that happened, your body's like activated.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's a very good point that you're making, because CO2 levels do actually have the the potential to freak the body out,
Hmm.
even though, like the same way as with somebody panicking about something.
Uh-huh.
So, and there was a research that they did with CO2 on a patient who had severe genetic uh, disease that like came out with the scaly skin and some tumors and just weird stuff that attacked her brain, and her amygdala, like the center of fear, just shut down.
Uh-huh.
And and then they did tests on her, because for 30 years she didn't feel any fear whatsoever. And also they talk about this was in the book Breath by James Nestor. If you're more interested in
I
that,
am.
then I
Mhm.
advise that book. And and so they tried to figure out what CO2 does to a patient, because they had the feeling that small levels, small elevations of CO2 can cause just constant anxiety in people,
Mm-hmm.
and chronic anxiety. And so if they wanted to test this, then this person was the perfect patient,
Mm-hmm.
because
She didn't have an
he has no
amygdala
fear.
anymore, actually. So
Exactly. So there was no cognitive
anxiety
way
had to
to,
be physical, right? Yeah.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
they gave her one breath of pure CO2, and she was freaking out as a, like
Okay.
the worst panic
Okay.
attack for
This
five
is so
minutes straight.
important for me because people were thinking I was anxious. I
And
think
they
I'm not a
do,
very fearful people person, like I don't fear almost anything. And I was like, I'm okay, I'm doing my things, my family is okay, my company is okay, but something doesn't make me relax, something that I don't can put my finger on, like.
so this is, I think, a very, very important point for COVID patients, because
Mhm,
if the CO2 levels are actually high, because it is trying to go high, but it's not triggering the receptors properly,
mhm,
then people are in a constant state of anxiety just from the gas itself,
mhm.
that is not being controlled from any thought, idea, PTSD, or amygdala
So
driven
people will
thing.
try to give you therapy or something, or maybe
It has
antidepressants.
no
It's not
effect on
gonna
this.
work
If,
because the
yeah,
mechanism is there.
so
Okay.
it's on a much more animalistic, if you will.
It's a lower level, right? It's a lower
Exactly,
level. It's like
exactly.
on the first floor. It's like it's not up here, right? Yeah.
Right. So it has
Mhm,
nothing to, and not even brainstem wise, so in
mhm.
nervous system, but this is
It's even
purely
lower.
gas related.
Makes so much sense. Actually, in December and January, I was almost okay, almost no symptoms. I was doing yoga therapy, breath work every day, every single day, 7 days a week.
Right.
Yeah, I
Interesting.
stopped for many reasons. The yoga therapist wanted me to do different stuff and it was not working anymore. And then I grew a little bit tired of the work and I started looking to see if there was something more complete, the mechanism was more clear. But she was giving me stuff. You're gonna mention, of course, you're gonna give me your method, but she was giving me those that you have slight apnea. How do you say it?
Hmm.
Apnea.
Yep.
That where you go?
Almost,
Not
but
okay.
yeah, similar.
Hmm. Yeah,
It
you had to then stop and then and different nostrils. I don't know. It's
right.
yoga thing, but it did work.
Yoga has a lot of breath types, and most of it you have to be really conscious of, okay, what I'm actually doing, and what am I actually looking for. The thing that I don't like is when they just give you a recipe and then you don't have any feedback on yourself. Is this really working or not? What am I
I
actually looking
know.
for?
That's why I stopped.
And,
I wasn't sure
and
she wasn't giving me the right things because she kept changing the breath. And some breath in yoga can be very powerful. And if
oh,
they give you the
absolutely.
wrong one. I did yoga for a long time before, and I
Okay.
know it cannot mess with your breath. Like sometimes I used to do Ashtanga. Are you familiar with
Hmm.
Ashtanga?
Yep.
And Ashtanga, I think for me, I loved it. I did it for like
Hmm.
maybe 8 years straight, 6 times a week. But maybe for me it was too stimulating because I'm already, very, you have to do the Ujjayi breath all the time and very high breath.
Yep.
So yeah, when I got pregnant, I stopped because I knew it was wrong, and then I stopped. So I've
It's
been looking around for the things you're probably gonna tell me.
and we can go into a lot of things, really. My time is
Uh-huh.
yours.
Mhm.
But for the first part, to recalibrate the breath, actually, this hypoxia training is the one that I found most direct and most efficient.
Mhm.
So, and it's really no fancy things. It's basically you walking, and it's good if you can be in like a set space, so not really just walking out well, you can do it in the open. Just take like a 50-meter part of the street, so you can always return to your starting point. So there, at your starting point, you're standing
So I
straight.
have to do like this. I
Yep.
should go back and forth.
Yes.
Okay, I live in front of a club. They have like an
Running
elliptical
track.
running track, 400 meters. Can I just
Perfect. Yeah,
go
absolutely.
around? Okay.
And also, if like there will be, I will get into it, because if you're getting to about 25-30 steps with one breath hold, then it's good to put some weight, to carry some weight with you. You can just hold it in front of your tummy like a bear hug, just holding
Like
it for
small hand weights or?
yeah, or a kettlebell. Those usually work. A dumbbell, just hold it on the two sides. Perfect.
Okay.
Just some weight, so the stuff
Can I
gets
put
then
something around
heavier.
my wrists, like those very light?
No, because you will have to put it down
Like,
when
okay.
when you stop with it. So you can carry it. That's good. Just don't really strap it on yourself. This is harder to take off, basically. So the main idea is to stop at your starting point, take 4 breaths, and the fourth one, when you breathe out, you keep it out. You don't have to force the breath out, but you just normally exhale and you don't inhale afterwards. And you start walking. You hold your breath and you start walking, and you're counting the steps. Eventually, you will get to a point where your body will start to freak out. You will try to gasp for air, where you will push as far as you can. But the main thing is that afterwards, when you sip in your first air through your nose, it should be a controlled breath, a
Not.
controlled inhale. Exactly. Like not going to that point where you completely freak out and you have to take a breath in, but you're pushing yourself as far as you can. And this is on you. So as this will always going to, as much as you can do, starting out from the point where you are right now, and not really giving you a set amount. Okay, you have to hold it for 4, you have to breathe out for 6, and then you have to stay out for 8. But actually focusing on your body, what it wishes, what it wants, and even changing from set to set. Okay, I can go 5 steps further. Okay, I had to do 3 less, and this will be interesting. This will be an experiment for you. But when you go up to that 25-ish step count, that's the point where it's good to take like a 5-kilo weight. It's plenty. And then when you get
now, it's gonna be less. I mean, I am so weak after 15 months.
And this will be mostly for your nervous system. Like just taking a small weight
to have the
and
weight.
having exactly, because you have those muscle tensions, and the muscle tension itself is a sympathetic triggering mechanism.
Oh, okay.
Basically.
Interesting.
So you start walking, you're counting the steps, you're going to the freak out stage. There you're pushing it as far as you can, where you can take a controlled breath in, and you go on. So you keep walking outwards from your starting point with these breath in and breath out through your nose, controlled breaths. And when you feel that you are starting to relax, you turn around and you walk back to your starting point.
Okay. Do you have this written, or should I take a note? Should I take notes now? It's better, right?
I have a PDF about it, so you can read through the protocol after that.
Great.
In that, it's all in there.
Good.
So you can download from it's benamarcy. Did you go to the website, or did you go straight to the events page?
No, I did.
I think there, since we last talked, I posted a video iteration of this workshop that from Random Ideas, basically talking about the same thing. And also I put up the PDF above the video.
Okay.
So
is it on the homepage?
People watching, yep, it's on if you go to benamarcy.hu, on the right side, there's English or welcome.
English, okay.
And under
Oh,
English,
and the
there's
last one, okay.
Recalibration
Post-COVID, blah, blah,
workshop.
yeah.
Yep. And then you scroll down, and above the video, there's a PDF or a
I
link
can see.
to the PDF, I
Good.
think.
Got it.
Got it?
Good. You're in Hungary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been in Rio in 2016.
Really?
For
You
that,
like
I
it?
went around Brazil a little bit. It was nice. Nice.
Mhm.
It was interesting. Really, just to mash.
A little bit overwhelming, right?
Yes, absolutely. Sao
Yeah.
Paulo was.
You were there
was
for what?
nicer. For the Olympics, I worked for
okay.
an American company for 6
Hmm.
months.
Hmm.
It was good. It
Nice.
was nice.
I didn't go to the Olympics.
Good.
I live in São
Don't have
Paulo.
to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was nice as well. So, going back
I've been to
to
your country too in 2017, I think.
sweet.
But really for 1 day, 2 days
Oh,
actually.
you did like a
Yes.
round trip?
We were doing a bike trip, my family, and we
Okay.
crossed Czech Republic and Austria, and we
Mhm.
took a train to Budapest for 1 day.
Awesome.
It was
You can see a
great.
lot in one.
Yeah, yeah. It was actually 2 days. I was sick the second day, but we loved it. It
Nice.
was an amazing old hotel called Columbia. I don't remember, but I loved it. Very
Sweet.
good food too. Restaurant called Tigris.
Okay. I
Yeah.
not
You don't
sure.
know it. You're where? You're not in Budapest.
I was. We moved to the countryside about 2 hours from Budapest last year. So now we're just really out in the green.
Great.
Going back to the breathing.
Yes.
So
hmm
you're walking back to your starting point, and if you had the weight in your hand, you're putting it down at the starting point.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's
And
why
you're
you have to
standing.
go back and forth, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Because when you get to your starting point, you're standing still.
hmm
At this point, when you're like 3, 4, 5 sets into the whole thing, you might want to leave your starting point. You will have it's sometimes happening, maybe with working out, it happened to you that you stopped your set and then you wanted to walk away from the weights.
hmm
So you're for people, and it's mostly happening to maybe CrossFit people who are doing high intensity training, and they are mid set and they're putting the weight down and they're walking away and then walking back and then starting redoing it. So that's actually a flight mechanism from the body. It just wants to get away from the thing. But we can override it with our conscious thoughts, so they go back and they do it more. But it's actually like a sign that, dude, what you're doing is just getting out. It's too
Working.
much.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's too much. Okay.
Yeah, but when you go back to your starting point and your body wants to leave, it's like actually, sorry, shut up. I get the call. 2 doggies just flying around.
Okay, so I have to do like a sort of comfortable stop breath.
Nose breathing.
I stop breath. No, but before I'm reading on the PDF, you start walking and you do as many steps as you can, but not too much, right? Not overwhelmingly, right?
Right, but as much as you can until to the point where you can comfortably and controlled take a breath in through your nose and then start breathing through your nose, in and out, in and out. You get back to your starting point, you put down the weight, you keep breathing, and you stay on that spot, one spot, and you wait for a signal from your body, and it's either like a big sigh,
Okay.
or
so this is the reset, right? Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Or yawning. That's the other thing.
Okay.
That mostly happened to me. Then your body is reset, your nervous system reset. You take up the weight or just without the weight, and you take your 4 breaths out, and you start going on your second set.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, how much do I walk taking normal breaths before I turn back?
It's just like 3, 4 breaths, so not far.
Okay. So as much as I can, no breath, and then
Three, four
controlled breath,
breaths. Yep,
not. And then I go when I walk, maybe 3, 4 breaths, and then I go back to my starting point.
exactly.
But I
Got
go
it.
back normally, and then I start from there doing right the exercise.
Exactly.
I don't exercise back, right? I mark a starting point and I go.
You go from there, and it's always
Yeah.
like the further you get, or the more steps you can take, the further you will go, because it will
Mm-hmm.
just be that much ahead.
Mm-hmm.
You never end. That's why the starting point is good to have, because you can teach your body to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, where you let it to freak out. Basically, you let it into
Mm-hmm.
a dark place. It can be really overwhelming at times, like if you really push yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Then the same thing as with that girl. If you really pump up your CO2 levels, it will be like a mini panic attack to your body.
Okay.
But at the same time, what you're doing with the controlled breaths is that you're telling your body, this state is okay. I'm gonna be fine.
I'm in control. I'm doing this. I'm getting to the place where I was getting unconsciously, like,
Yeah,
but I know how to get out, right?
exactly. And you're teaching your
Uh-huh.
body that okay, this feeling, these emotions, this overwhelming state, it's okay. I'm gonna get through it. Because afterwards, when you're calming yourself down with the controlled breaths, that's where you're gonna end up. You're gonna be in a
Okay.
comfortable, safe space.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And so that is what it's gonna lead you and other people, I'm sure, to where they're not freaking out either before sleep or during sleep. Because the
Okay.
stuff that is happening there is that your breath count and the depth of your breath is slowing down and is getting shallower.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we go to sleep. But actually, this part, like the CO2 level, it rises, but not actually quite enough to trigger that. So the O2 is not there. So we start pushing it more and more and more. So we start
Mm-hmm.
freaking out a little bit, and then okay, bam, it happens.
Okay.
But if you can teach yourself that the freaking out part and that high levels of CO2, where you trigger your O2 come out, which will get better eventually. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
that okay, I have this amount of receptors now, and that's it. So I'm gonna always freak out during my sleep. But it's
Mm-hmm.
actually getting to that part where you're oxygenated. You can go to bed with you relaxed. You can have a comfortable sleep, and then you can get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like a major point that one should have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And did
So
you
for that,
find
this
this out
yep,
now after COVID, or did you know it already?
I knew it before, but like this three-part protocol that I put together, it's I put it just together after the protocol um, because of the things that I heard, I read, and the researches that people did, and that because I
Mm-hmm.
saw that all the symptoms, or like 99% of the symptoms that people talk about, are all nervous system based.
Uh-huh.
That the
Yes.
nervous system is
And
freaked
that's what
out,
I think all my doctors didn't go, Lots of
and but
supplements, things, intuitive things like rest a lot, drink water, but still there was something that wasn't being addressed, I felt.
right, but this is going from or coming from a functions of the nervous system point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the 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 physiology of the nervous system, but actually what states you are putting yourself into with certain
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, certain
Yeah.
gas states, and certain things that you might do throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you when you really figure out these states, what states in parasympathetic and what states you have in sympathetic nervous system, then it just gets so clear.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing this gas part, for example, that is not actually a conscious thing, where somebody has anxiety and okay, go see a therapist, get some medication
Or
for
take a
anxiety.
medicine. Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't work. And
Yeah.
also it's not a solution. Like meds are
Yeah.
never a solution. They can be part of a
Palliative.
solution
Yeah. Yeah, but
to calm
never
you back
this.
down. But if, and this is going out to anyone who's watching this and is on meds, if there is not a plan, and this is my not unofficial opinion on this, If you don't have a plan afterwards to ease off from the meds, then you're not getting a complete treatment. So
Yes,
meds are
gonna
really
be a
good.
slave
I'm
to.
not against it, but got to have a plan to also afterwards to come off it, because your body is just going to adapt to it. You're going to get to higher doses, and it's just not going to work eventually. But none of that here. So functions of the nervous system. It's really, really crucial that we give enough sympathetic input to have the needed parasympathetic result of that. So we push ourselves enough out so we can calm ourselves back down. And one other thing that a person can do to do that, to if they only have like a mild chronic anxiety, then they can take a cold shower, for example, just the coldest that they can go, and just skyrocketing that sympathetic nervous system, so eventually it can calm down afterwards. But it all so that's on the functional nervous system. But still, if the gas exchanges are not calibrated properly with the hypoxia training, then they're just going to go back to the same state. So even though they calm down for a period of time, it's just going to go back because the balance is just not there with the oxygen and the CO2.
Right. Still an external solution. You're not teaching our body to go where it should be, right?
Exactly. So for that, hypoxia training, magic. Apart from that, another thing that you can do is the hardware training. So the breathing apparatus, or lungs and abdominals. To that one I put in the link in the PDF as well, to have a rubber band and to how to do the stretch.
Like those TheraBands.
Yep, but not having it in front of you and in your hands and like pull it aside, but having actually behind you and doing a breathe out and pulling it forward like a chest fly. And then when you're breathing in, then you're opening it up and you have all your muscles on tension, and you're doing a slow eccentric of the muscles. That's going to stretch that thing actually, and it's really teaching the mind muscle connections that it's actually okay to go that far. Because that's why
it
it's not
got sort of
exactly it got
collapsed, right?
shortened. Exactly. And I can do the part where I take the band and pull it apart, but it's not gonna be that effective. I can be strong in those parts, but if I want to extend it and do a better mobility, then I will have to go eccentric. So going with the tension, but having my muscles on tension as well.
Okay.
That's for the
So
hardware.
the chest flights, I should do how much?
Okay, so the breathing, the hypoxia training, you can do every day, once or twice, between 5 and 10 sets. I think I mentioned that in the PDF as well.
Yes.
Normally I did once a day, 10 sets, just in one round. That was like 20-25 minutes kind of deal.
Okay.
The chest flies, if you're doing workouts, then that's a great start for that. If not, then maybe 3 times a week.
Okay.
I would recommend. And then do 3 to 5 sets, 10 reps, plenty. You can go heavier band if you wish, but it's really not about that. It's a controlled, elongated breath in and extension of the chest.
Okay.
So the more focus you can bring in and the more tension you can hold in your muscles, the longer, the better it's gonna get.
Okay.
Good. So the third part that I'm mentioning is abdominal massage on either volleyball, football, some kind of a larger ball. It can be a medicine ball as well. The main thing is to lay down on your stomach, breathe in, push hard against the ball, and as you're breathing out, you can let the ball sink in to your diaphragm. And then with your whole body, just roll around the ball. And then you can massage your diaphragm so it gets it can contract and release better, basically.
Okay.
So when you're breathing in, you can do more diaphragmatic breathing as well, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the other part of anxiety, that it's being focused down to the abdominals, not basically the top uh, the top squares of the six pack, but a little bit lower towards the more towards the belly button, and just those four pack below those top two squares of the abdominal rectus, uh, rectus abdominis. Yeah, that's it. So those get really really tight, and you can read up
Okay.
on this with on body armoring from Wilhelm Reich. He was an
Mm-hmm.
Austrian psychologist. He wrote these down, how these energetics and how the muscle tension is just focused down to those parts of the abdominals.
Mm-hmm.
And we know how anxiety gets built up, and so the breathing gets stuck as well. So massages can help a lot too, to relax the whole
Mm-hmm.
system.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to experiment with is taping the mouth for sleeping. This
Yeah.
is, did you hear about that? Did you try it?
No, never.
Okay, so it's best, I think I write about this in the PDF as well, it's the best to try it during the day for an hour or two, maybe starting with half an hour, but taking any type of tape, closing your mouth, and taping just the 2 finger wide part of your mouth. You don't have to
Here.
cross tape it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's plenty enough for you to not open your mouth, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And what that's going to force is a nose breathing. So during sleep, when you get to that point, if you can stop yourself from breathing through your mouth unconsciously, because when anxiety builds up a little bit, then we tend to turn to
Right.
that. Exactly, because mouth
Mm.
breathing is actually synced to the sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
So when we freak out, it's that's
Mm.
the breathing that we're doing. And
Okay.
then if we can tape that down, we're actually forcing our nose to work. And if you can keep that, then that's going to result in in uh, a better parasympathetic activation and a more relaxed sleep,
Mm-hmm.
just deeper sleep and better quality sleep.
My husband is going to think
Ish,
I'm completely crazy.
yeah, a lot of people thought of me as well, but yeah, it works, and you could really feel that when you're waking up and you feel like that you have a little bit dry mouth or like really bad mouth odor, that sometimes results from somebody opening the mouth and just starting to breathe a little bit through the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And you can counteract that with just taping it shut.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the fourth part for the first uh, step of the protocol. The
Mm.
second step would be, any questions to the breathing part?
Just for me to write it down again. How long should I do the massage? And how
Um,
much chest flights? I think I forgot. Chest flights.
yeah, chest flies were 10-15 reps for 3 to 5 sets every second day, every third day. So like 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay, 2, 3 times a week. 15, 30, okay, 10, 15 reps. Mm-hmm.
Right? And the massage you can do between at least 2 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and up to 5 minutes, basically laying on your stomach on the ball. If it's not too
Okay.
uncomfortable. If it's
Okay.
uncomfortable, then you
Every
can
day?
uh I wouldn't do it every day. I would do it like 2 times a week. That's
Okay.
for a month maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you feel like it or feeling tension in the stomach, but you're gonna have a really distinctive feeling after doing it first, and then you can always go back to, okay, I'm not really feeling that, I'm not really having that deep breath afterwards, so okay, I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to do that. So really watch the signals that your body is putting out, and then you will know when to when to do it,
Mhm.
when you need it. Cool.
Good. Sounds
So
simple enough, and it makes sense.
and that's the main thing. Like we can go into fancy things and treatments, but it's always about the principles and
Hmm.
how the nervous system works, what states it's getting into, and okay, how can we best approach that. And also this hypoxia training is just basically that. It's the simplest thing that one can do to really elicit the effect that one wants to have after a thing
Hmm.
that post-COVID caused. So the second step is to read the bodily signals of fatigue.
Hmm.
And this is a big one, I think, for you as well, because I hear from a lot of people that they want to go back to work and they doing mostly what they did before COVID, but because their nervous systems are just shut, because it just went through a major fight when it was battling COVID. Like from the external, this is the one part that a lot of people don't get, that from the outside you look like really calm and you're doing nothing because you're laying in bed
Hmm.
or just resting a lot.
Hmm.
But internally, you're like you have the biggest fight that you ever had in your life,
Hmm.
and your nervous system, your physiology is just going out of hand because it needs to battle this
I
thing.
know.
It needs to get rid of this. And this is
Hmm.
where the whole cytokine storm comes in. And the cytokine storm itself is when the body loses control of the fight. It goes into like it goes overboard and okay, I can't deal with shit. I'm gonna try just everything.
Uh-huh.
Just put everything out there. And that's when the body is just trying to flee from the situation. Again,
Hmm.
a very distinctive flight state from a fight state where I'm actually proactively and controlled. I'm battling that virus.
Hmm.
But one needs to train themselves to maintain that state. So this happens outside of COVID, and it's not really into how to do it when somebody has post-COVID syndrome. But when somebody is back to their normal state, you can. I have protocols for that as well. Strong Fit did an amazing job in doing that, but how to elicit really the highest fight that you can to really go at training yourself to be this proactive being and to have a strong fight for these situations where you really need to be there and you need to hold your ground and okay,
Hmm.
wait it out until your T cells go out and they read the information. Okay, we're producing the other antibodies, and it can go through that process. It just takes time.
Hmm.
But if your
Hmm.
body can keep that in fighting for that long, then it's gonna lose control. It's just gonna release everything, and then the problems start to rise. And
Uh-huh.
one needs to go to for breath control for what is that breathing machine? The
Oh, really?
Yeah, so one is just really running out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
then
interesting with long COVID because many people who have it is the people who didn't get that extreme during the disease, during the infection.
mhm,
They weren't hospitalized. They didn't, their lungs didn't go off. One of the hypotheses is that you don't take medication and you have viral residues in your body. So you have like a mini version of the cytokine storm all the time, like a chronic version.
right,
I think it makes sense.
absolutely. And this is why I think as well when people get the vaccine, not everyone, but some
Some
people
of them get better,
get
yeah,
better, exactly. And then
because
some
then they have
people,
a proper immune reaction and then they
right,
reset. Yeah.
right. And this is the funny thing that very similar uh, patients who have very similar symptoms, one gets better from the vaccine, one doesn't. The symptoms themselves are very, very similar, as the same thing with you as well, with the histamine problems. The effects and the symptoms that we see from the outside are very, very similar, but they can come from totally different
Different
things.
mechanisms. Yeah.
Exactly. So one really needs to tackle the common points, if you will, which is the nervous system. And if you can get yourself to that safe place, either with nutrition, either with breathing, or hyperthermia, or hypothermia, or like whichever.
The being off thing, right?
Yeah,
You know
but
that.
they all result in the same thing. If you can get yourself to that calm state where you can recover and your body can switch over to okay, and I'm calm and I can recover, I can sleep well, then you're gonna get better eventually. Small baby steps, but you need to be aware of, first, your breathing is fine. Second, you're not overworking yourself, because that's gonna
We're working like in too much exercise or work.
either too much exercise, or either work as well, because that's the same thing for the body. Stress is stress.
Yeah, that's where I went wrong.
But I wouldn't say that you went wrong, because that's where and this is the amazing thing of our psychology and physiology, how we can override that, how we can plant beliefs into our minds that can drive us to really override any signals that we get from the bodies. The best that we can do is we always have to start off from, okay, how am I feeling, especially when my nervous system is just burned out like this. So if I can do that, then I can still do a lot, but not go overboard with it. And this is what
You
the
mean
second step
start
is
from
actually
what you
doing.
have? If you're too tired, don't do this. If you're stressed, don't do that. That's what you mean?
Exactly.
Okay.
The question is always, how much is that? Where is that spot? So what doctors usually prescribe for people, take it easy for a while now. Okay, but how much is that? Like, do I have to lay in bed and not work at all and just not meet any people and just shut everything? Or can I do like 5 minutes or 1 hour or 2 hours? Or what is the mechanism that I have to follow to really know exactly? And the answer is that, like, you only know because your body and your nervous system is telling you, is showing you that, hey, you might be going a little overboard here. And if you can respond to that and ease back on the activity that you're doing, not stop it, so not going full stop, but noticing and going back to, okay, a conscious nose breathing throughout that process, and 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 just feeling that state. Okay, I'm calming that back down a little bit because I got a little bit tension here, I got a little bit tense here. And if you can notice that, then you can ease back down a little bit. And then when your body calms down back down, it builds itself back up, and you will have that feeling of, okay, I can go faster now. I can do more now. I can go attack here because I know that afterwards I have the time to ease back down. And so it's like a waveform throughout the day. And if you can follow that and whatever your nervous system can do in that specific scenario, then you can end up with a balanced out body just at the end of the day, which is what we want, because then you can recover from whatever stress you had throughout the day, and then you can again build yourself back up always. So,
That
and
is not so simple to do. You have to be observing yourself all the time, right?
not really, you just have to train yourself. Just have to train your nervous system to notice those signals. Because, for example, I was really good with pushing down my emotions. I was a professional athlete, and I had a lot of injuries, just pain all the time. And I was really good at, okay, I don't care about that. I'm just going to push through, and because that's what athletes do, and that's how I'm going to get a champion. It's just part of the game.
Mhm.
It's not, now I know, but at that
Uh-huh.
time it seemed like a really good idea. So, and it's not like that's what you do, or like people with post-COVID do, but we are really,
It
really
is what I
good.
do, not as an
Okay.
athlete, but as a working person,
And
I
it's,
have done that all my life. I have to go, I have to get there. I just go. I don't care if I'm
and
hurting,
it and
I
it
just
didn't,
go.
right, and it didn't cause a problem because you had your weekend, or you had like that a couple weeks in the year where you recovered, and that was enough for your nervous system and your body, and you could go all the way. But
Hmm.
now you had an input in
It
your
was too
life.
overboard. Yeah, he went overboard. Yeah,
Well,
I
the COVID
cannot go
happened,
back.
right,
Yeah.
and but you can still train yourself from this spot if you don't go overboard.
Hmm.
It's just same thing as with training as well, with the muscles.
Hmm.
If you overtrain yourself, you won't feel the want to go to do more exercise, and also you will get injured. It's the same deal. But the nervous system is just with the stress. People need to understand that this is not, and it's more and more coming out, and one understanding the nervous system, you can really see that it's not only affecting the lungs, it's not only pneumonia disease, or like influenza like disease, but it's actually attacking the nervous system heavily.
Hmm.
Don't really know what exactly it does, but it has an effect on the nervous system, and one really needs to consider that, and uh,
Yeah.
and give the chance the body to recover and heal.
Yeah. And that
So,
makes sense with the people who are having long COVID. Not all of them, most of them are relatively young and relatively very active. You know, they tend to
right.
work a lot and work out a lot. Most of them are women,
Mhm.
like by far, I think 80%, 70%, something like that. I think it has to do with the way you push yourself and then.
Right. But women are way better to push themselves long term than men. Men are good on the short term. They
Yeah,
can't.
but maybe
They
that's why these women were getting
Yeah,
hyperactivated because they were pushing themselves for a long time
right.
when they
Men
got
are
there.
really good to push themselves for a couple days, or for a project, or one fight with another dude for
Hmm.
life, and
They
then
push
rest for
themselves
2 weeks.
more for less time. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, higher intensity, shorter time. Women, lower
Uh-huh.
intensity, but for
Women
a
just
longer time.
go. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's true.
And so yeah, they just, one really needs to, all men and women just really need to focus on teaching their system to notice these signals, and again, teach the system uh, what responses it needs to focus on after these signals come up.
Hmm.
So it's
Yeah.
not even, like you're noticing, because one thing in the second step is intrusive thoughts. When intrusive thoughts come in, then you need to slow back down with the cardio. I will explain more in just a sec. But you won't actually focus on the intrusive thoughts that you're having, because you're just taught yourself that however that feels, because that's just the conscious part of you noticing that. In the
Mhm.
training part, you can focus on that thing whenever that appears. Even there it's hard, but still you have the time that you put aside where you focus in on that. But that thing, intrusive thoughts, is combined with an internal state that you're not actually feeling or having, but your body is recording that. So
I
your
think I need you to explain this better, the intrusive
okay,
thoughts part.
right. I'm gonna get to the what intrusive thoughts I think, but the main concept and the basic principle of the whole thing is to teach your body to read that internal state that comes up when, for example, intrusive thoughts come in your mind, either from the past or from the future, that is not really at the present. And whenever the internal state comes up, it's gonna step into a habit loop, which is gonna elicit a slowing back down of the energy output, whatever you're doing.
Hmm.
if you're not consciously overriding that, okay, now we're going, but it's going to ask you to, okay, I know that what should do here, so we're going to slow back down a little bit, focus on the breathing
Okay.
more, and then slow back down.
Mm-hmm.
Still doing stuff, not stopping, but slowing back down a little bit. So how you're doing that is by doing 30 to 40 minutes of slow aerob work, which can be fast-paced walking or a light jog. You're gonna do nose breathing only, and you're gonna watch for the following symptom or signals. One is shortness of breath, where you need to like, I'm gonna have to open my mouth shortly. That's too fast. You're gonna have to slow back down.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, sweating from the forehead. I don't know how warm there's in Rio, but if it's really, really, you're not in Rio, it's there in Sao Paulo. But
I'm in
in
São
Brazil,
Paulo, and
yeah.
it's almost winter now, so it's not too hot.
Okay. But for people being in like a warm climate at the moment, it's this part is not very
Very
important.
reliable as a sign.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're starting to sweat from your forehead, for example, that's a sign of you switching over to that sympathetic state more.
Okay.
And one can, for example, look at how what people who eat very spicy foods do. They start sweating from their foreheads.
Mm-hmm.
That is pushing that sympathetic state. So
Yeah.
that's why it's also like a good sign. Another thing is these intrusive thoughts, which is past sadness or future anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
or sadness about past events, or anxiety about future events.
Okay. And that's sympathetic response again.
That's starting to push you towards a more sympathetic, more emotional part of your being, and that is more towards that sympathetic
Okay.
side, sympathetic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like heavy emotions. Heavy emotions are all on the sympathetic side of the nervous system,
Okay.
like love, passion, hate, anger, aggression. These are all on the sympathetic side. The
Okay.
parasympathetic side is where the calm part is. If you have an active vagus nerve that is pushing a vagal brake, it's called, on the sympathetic nervous system,
Mm-hmm.
you're not feeling nothing, you're just feeling less of those
Mm-hmm.
emotions,
Less intense. Mm-hmm.
less intense, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
that's what you're striving for when you're relaxed. You're not really doing, you don't need that energy that is within those
Mm-hmm.
emotions.
Okay.
I love the saying that emotions are energy in motion. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same energy. All emotions are coming from the same spot. It's just felt differently on different
Mm-hmm.
parts of the body.
Okay.
That's how we're putting a label on it. That, okay, this is love because I'm feeling these butterfly thing here. Okay, this is anger. I'm feeling this
Mm-hmm.
tension, this built up something.
Uh-huh.
It's just that's the labels we put on that we've learned.
Okay. Are you
Um,
familiar with that polyvagal theory?
yep, yeah.
Okay.
So and that's talking about actually the vagal brake, what is how evolutionary it formed,
Mm-hmm.
and how it got built out, and what we're actually losing through a traumatic well, a long-term event, not like single event, but like a long-term event like COVID, um, that we're just in that constant fight state.
Mm-hmm.
We can't really push hard enough vagal brake on that sympathetic part, because it's not actually getting triggered properly, going high enough, so it can ease back down. It's just
Mm-hmm.
constantly up there, but we're not strong enough with the
And
parasympathetic
not
to
coming
put a vagal
back and
brake.
not going. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. This is like because a lot
Like a
of
chronic. Mm-hmm.
yeah, because in business, for example, a lot of businessmen, managers, a lot of people ended up with chronic stress,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the people who try to meditate to calm themselves back down, and they're
Can't.
fucking doing the meditation, and they can't ease back down maybe for the last 5 minutes, but it's just
Uh-huh.
so tense throughout the whole process. And
Mm-hmm.
with yoga as well, my wife is a yoga instructor, And then she had people who like really did the yoga,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, okay, full tense, and she's doing flow, so vinyasa, but
Mm-hmm.
it was funny to see.
Yeah, you can do it
Yeah,
in a tense state and it doesn't. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a very big thing, like what state you are in, and state versus action, what state you're in, what action is going to result in.
Mm-hmm.
It's highly affecting that. So if you're not checking your state, you're only like reading your action afterwards, and you're not considering, okay, what state I was in before that. And you're maybe not you, but like someone, and this is happening, I think, to a lot of people, even outside of COVID, they had a stressful day, they go home, they have a fight with the spouse, and they are maybe angry at themselves or at the spouse because because something happened there, whereas they were in a state of fight when they got home.
So everything would
So
trigger them. Anything
exactly,
would trigger them.
they are
Mm-hmm.
looking for a fight.
Uh-huh.
They are in that state and they are looking for that thing. That's how they are set up. So
Mm-hmm.
it's nobody's fault. It's just that was their state.
Mm-hmm.
So if one can change the state before going home, and can read, okay, what state I'm in right now, then they
Mm-hmm.
can be in a state where they can socialize, they can connect, and they can understand, which is in the parasympathetic active part.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, and the last part for this light cardio is to listen to a very soothing sound, which is high pitched voices can elicit a sense of safety, uh, according to the polyvagal theory, and this is, according to StrongFit, bestly done. And I tried it out, and for me, it worked totally, listening to Disney princess songs,
Mm-hmm.
because they have the high pitchness, and what I'm thinking is there's a reason why kids movies have these songs,
Uh-huh. Because they're
and why
soothing. Mm-hmm.
exactly, and kids are attracted to these things
Mm-hmm.
because
It's funny you mentioned that. My husband cannot tolerate high pitched women voices in songs. Whenever I put a song like this, he goes like, I already know. It can be very different things. He doesn't, I don't know. It always caught my attention, this.
does he get angry?
Mm, he gets irritated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. So and that's again my theory, but I think when the body gets into a state of safety, it's feeling safe enough to release emotions. So
And then
whatever
he
one
released the emotion he has, right? Yeah.
so whatever one has bottled in, and I don't know him, you can look into the background of him or whatever he
I
does
do. And
every
it
time.
makes total sense, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay, so whatever one pushes down and feels again, relaxed and safe to,
Hmm.
okay, I can release this now, it will come up. And again, if
Okay.
somebody thinks, and this can be a mental thing, like a mental block or belief, if somebody thinks that, okay, it's not okay for me to feel anger or feel hatred, because that's a bad emotion, and
Hmm.
it can come
I'm
from
not allowed to do it, but now I'm feeling it too much and I cannot witness
exactly.
it
So
properly.
I'm
So
gonna
I'm
push it back
irritated.
down a little bit more.
So just turn it down, please. I can deal with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Funny.
and that again, this shows up like this. Okay, this is a chance for him to look within him and, okay, start dealing
Hmm.
with issues if he wants to.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to.
Yeah, I'll deal with
It
my
can lead
issues
to.
at the moment because it's, yeah, yeah,
Give him my
funny.
contact. I talk gladly with him.
Hmm.
Expert on this. Um, I had similar stuff, so I totally understand.
It's funny
So,
because I love high pitched women voices.
um,
I lots of songs like this. So yeah, it's gonna be easy for me. But you do it
perfect.
while you're working out.
Yes.
Okay.
So the reason for that is your body has a bigger sense of safety, so you can push yourself actually more, like to a higher pulse rate, to a higher
Hmm.
heart rate,
Hmm.
um, but still not go overboard, and for you to still notice when you might go overboard. And also, like the headphones, they block out sounds that might, elicit
Start for me.
exactly, like a sympathetic nervous system, any screech, any, for something for you to look at. But
Mhm.
auditorily, you can create
Again,
this
my
sense.
husband, he's very connected to background sound. I don't even
Mm,
notice it. And he's like,
right.
he
Okay.
walks
So
into a restaurant, it's noisy. He's noisy nightclubs. I had to go out with him because he couldn't, yeah,
this is the
very
idea.
auditorily, like, yeah, stimuli.
This is the basic idea. And then what one does is that you really put that 30 minutes, 40 minutes aside. And while you're doing the cardio, while you're doing the run, you're actually trying to notice these signs. You're like going faster, faster, or like in a fast pace, up
Mm-hmm.
until the point that you're feeling shortness of breath, intrusive thoughts, or like involuntary sweating from forehead. Um, and then you try to ease back down a little bit with the pace.
Mm-hmm.
So you notice it that you're going overboard, you're easing back down with the pace, you're getting centered again, you're getting again in that present moment, noticing what is going on right there
Mm-hmm.
with your breathing, with your movement. And when you have that, and you're feeling that, okay, my body wants to go a little bit faster now, you can start going faster. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to pace up a little bit. Okay, you're going to reach that point that, okay, too much, you're going to ease back down. These can be
Mm-hmm.
minutes apart.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
throughout the whole process, if you're doing it right, you're getting into a flow, and it's like every 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you're like noticing, oh shit, 15 minutes or 20 minutes have passed. I wasn't here. I wasn't like 10 kilometers away from here.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're getting into flow, that's what happens. You're losing track of time and space.
Uh-huh. Like when you're running and yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. When you're getting
Mm-hmm.
that high, and when you're getting into the flow, and just everything stops. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're actually striving for, because that not only can teach you how to manage your fatigue signals better, but it's actually clearing your system, and this is purely on the physiology side, is ridding your system of unused lactate,
Mm-hmm.
which is another big thing among COVID patients, that they're just building up lactate constantly.
Mm-hmm.
And also inflammation is causing water to build up, and that can be cleared as well, because the lymph system is just getting activated, and
Mm-hmm.
you're doing maximum work that you can, that your nervous system allows you, without building excess lactate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we're calling it active meditation, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
you're physiologically clearing yourself from anxiety.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And that's a good one because throughout the year I didn't know how much to exercise. Very few times where I got into like 12-kilometer walk. Nothing really. I got fatigue afterwards.
Right. So
40
so you're
minutes
not
on the elliptical, nothing. And I couldn't sleep the whole night. I had like this, my nose got stuffed and yeah,
and
once
stuffy
on
nose.
the elliptical, yes.
Right. So stuffy nose, also sympathetic nervous system.
Okay.
So what we're doing
Once
when
40
stuffy
minutes on
nose.
the elliptical, really heavy, but at night, which was wrong, like 7, 8, I don't know. I couldn't sleep and everything got stuck here.
Right.
And I didn't have a cold or flu, nothing. It was just like this reaction.
Right. And another thing, like if you can build up your CO2 levels, and Boteco speaks a lot about this. If you build up your CO2 levels high enough, then you're starting to release nitric oxide, which is releasing your blood vessels. It's releasing your sinuses. So your stuffy nose actually gets clear within a minute. It's magic when you can experience it, and
I
you can
I
push
had
your CO2 up
times,
that.
yeah, when I could get into a deeply relaxed state and the stuffy nose went, but I cannot always do it. I don't have a method. I just try to relax. And
Okay,
sometimes it does
so
work. Sometimes it
right,
does
right.
work. Yeah.
So when you're laying in bed and you have stuffy nose and you did the hypoxia training a couple times and you can stop your breathing and can breathe out through your nose like really, 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 really slow. And you can just really, and Ujjayi can be helpful with that because like a similar thing, but really slowing down your exhale through your nose, that builds up CO2 right there, like within those cavities, and you start
Mhm.
releasing nitric oxide, and it's going to just clear out in like 4 or 5 breaths.
Mhm.
It's really magic. And also
Yeah,
like,
I did something similar, like exhaling a lot
mm,
and then stopping to breathe a little bit and then go back again, sort of. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
perfect. And then this shows like this can help also people with who have headaches, who have high blood pressures, because of the tension releasing effect of nitric oxide.
Hmm.
So the blood vessels release themselves. They're not so tense. It releases themselves. The blood can actually flow through the blood vessels. It's not being pressed up into the brain, into the cavity, and it can just relax. So blood pressure drops, the headaches drop, and one can be relaxed again.
Okay.
So this is helpful in that way as well. Perfect. Step two, everything clear? Any questions
Uh-huh.
there?
I think it is so far. Yes. Hmm.
Okay. And the third part, then final part, is the recalibration of the self. This is mainly on the psychology side
Hmm.
and is starting out from the same spot as the second step where people just push themselves physically too far
Hmm.
just because they got used to doing stuff before. And this is the overwriting part of that mechanism where we consciously think back of the time where we didn't have COVID, and when we consciously hold an idea of ourselves and how we are now subpar to that person that we were,
Hmm. Yes.
and then we just go through life with the idea, okay, when will I go back to my past self? When will I be my old self again?
Hmm.
And this is, excuse my French, but it's a stupid question because I will never be my old self again.
Hmm.
Even, and this is, I think for a lot of people would argue with that no, I can go back. Even if I go back to the same physical level or like metrics that I had before COVID, I won't be the same person anymore.
Hmm.
Because people, if they think about, okay, when will I go back to my old self again, they're thinking of specific skills or specific scenarios where um, they can go at their days the same way as before. So it's only describing certain parts of their lives. But they themselves, as a person, they will never be the same as that past self because
Hmm.
they gained that experience throughout COVID, throughout the recovery process, and so on. So then there's a Peter Crone quote that I really, really like that I put in the PDF as well, which is whatever happened, happened, and it couldn't have happened any other way because it didn't.
Hmm. Because it did. Yes.
Because it didn't happen any other way. Because it happened as the way it happened.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay.
when people start to argue with their present state that I shouldn't be in this state, I should be like that person before COVID,
Hmm.
then they are struggling to step they're struggling to accept reality as it is. They're struggling to start off from where they are, and they're basically battling reality.
Hmm.
But the thing is that if one battles reality, then they will lose 100% of the time.
Hmm.
The only result that they're getting from this state of mind is is again a mild sympathetic reaction, which is not accepting where they are, but they're actually trying to fight, they're trying to battle whatever they are at.
Hmm.
And this is coming from the psychology side. which is
Mm-hmm.
eliciting a similar physiological state
Mm-hmm.
that, for
So one
example,
thing reinforces the other, right? Yeah.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
which is a higher CO2 level is doing the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That is resulting in an immune system overactivity. It's resulting in not being able to sleep well, not having quality sleep, not being able to recover,
Mm-hmm.
and then the whole thing just stretches out and stretches out.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the psychology side of the thing that one needs to really look into, how well they can accept where they are at right now, how
Mm-hmm.
well they can utilize the skills that they have left at the moment, and then start building from there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they can do that and they can really realize what their bodies are capable of at the moment and can accept that and start from there, which is the step two is a perfect start for that. And one might realize that, okay, I'm doing the light jog. Okay, of course, I can do that. But at the second minute with the light jog, with the nose breathing, they are having shortness of breath and they have to slow down to a fast paced walk. This will be hit in the face that, oh shit, like that's
Oh, I
where I'm
think
at right now.
I went through that already. You know, I'm like, I'm okay with that. Yeah.
Right. But
Yeah.
that when one can accept that, then you
No,
can start
yeah,
progressing
I
from
did
there.
that already. Yes. Hmm. I'm
Perfect.
okay.
Yeah.
Things come to you for a reason and you just have to go with them and fine. I was probably doing it wrong for myself. You know, I drank a ton of coffee,
Mm.
lots of pepper. I just ran too much and I biked too much and I worked too much. It was wrong. It was wrong. So I think I'm finding a lot of things, you know, so I'm okay. I'm there.
Mm.
I'm learning
I wouldn't
from you
say
and learning from the other guys I talk to. Learning for me
you,
is always the escape route, you know, because I like learning and I think reality brings interesting stuff to us. Actually, I was
awesome.
talking to a friend of mine yesterday, a therapist,
Mm.
and he had COVID and I didn't know. And he said it was an interesting experience. And I said, yeah, I understand you. It is interesting, you know. It's
It is
painful.
interesting.
Sometimes you want to go back, you know, but, you know, it is what it is.
Right, but that's the
And
thing.
you
Yeah, you
have
can't.
to see the things it opens. Actually, last year, I think I was a better leader because I didn't have so much stamina and I had to rely more on other people.
Mm.
And I think it opened lots of
Beautiful.
ways for my company. We
Right.
doubled in size and it wasn't a coincidence, you know, because the energy of the leader drives everything. And I was letting things happen in a way I didn't before. So I'm
Right.
okay with that. Yeah.
Right. But and this is, I think, where not you, but like a lot of people get it wrong, that it's not saying that COVID is good. Like it's not
Uh-uh.
looking at the whole
Just
experience
working
as,
with it.
okay, I'm really grateful and happy that it happened. No, because that would be looking at the picture only like one side of reality,
Hmm.
which a very positive way, which is the most negative way to look at it from the negative side with it. So what reality is that yes, this was a shitty experience. You are in a state right now where you can still progress and build, but you have to start from here.
Yeah.
You can't start
Mhm.
from the place that
And
you
be okay
think
with
you
it.
should be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
And this is the one thing I think that messes up a lot of people as well, where doctors say that, okay, you are clear from COVID and you're healthy.
They want to go back to where they were. Yeah.
Sure, because the doctor said so. They are healthy.
Hmm.
So why can't they do the stuff that they did before?
Yeah.
They're over it. Well, they're not quite over because it's in their nervous.
Yeah.
It's like physiologically, that's the word, maybe. So, but we
Physiologically.
understand. Um, your uh, your lungs, your livers, your kidneys, they can all be fine. Your heart, your brain, they can all show good signs. But then again, the functions in your nervous system, the stuff that they learned throughout this virus and battling this virus, it's still there. And you have to recalibrate, to reteach your system to that new state and to that new
Hmm.
being that you are right now.
Hmm. Yes. No, I get that. That I
Awesome.
get. Yeah. Yeah,
Perfect.
sometimes I'm just scared that too much of me got depleted with 1 year and a half of this, but I'm working every day. So,
And again, it's knowing knowing to accept that as well. I can't really
yeah.
put it any other way. You hearing yourself saying those things, again, nothing wrong with that. Just knowing what the results are, what the effects of those things are in your nervous system, and then
Yeah.
and deciding however you want to progress. And it's the
Mhm.
same thing. They're listening. It comes up as an emotion, then it formulates as a thought, looking back on those past 1.5 years, and
Mhm.
then having the care for yourself
Mhm.
that that you that you didn't really know any other way, that you made the best decision that you could in that moment,
Mhm.
that you only see that those things now in this second with the knowledge that you have right now.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, you're right.
So you did
Mhm.
the best that you could, and you're
Mhm.
still doing the best that you can.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like an intense version of what life really is.
Mm.
Time makes you age and lose things, and you have to not focus on that in the wrong way, because that's what happens. Yeah.
Everything has an outcome. Everything just has a specific outcome. No, nothing is good or bad. It's
Hmm.
both and none.
Yeah, that was my phrase for the year, pain equals pleasure. They both teach you, they both interesting, they both, you know,
Right?
yeah.
Useful in some ways, and
Yes.
also
Hmm.
completely useless in other ways.
Uh-huh. And completely used to get attached to them as good or bad, like.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
again, useful. Like you can put also on this thought one thing, because yeah, if I get attached, then I'm really focusing on, and I'm very passionate about something,
Mm-hmm.
which is good in some scenarios, bad in other scenarios. But it's all based on perspectives and values.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's just interesting when you can not stay in a questioning thought, but you can really decide, okay, which way you would like to go, because that's what is looking like a good decision in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best way you can be, and then you can switch around afterwards as well, because you feel that, okay, now I need to go this way. But you
Yeah.
can always be certain of yourself that you're proactively participating in the course of your life and creating that your life.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm gonna start doing it, and of course, I'll let you know how I'm going. I think.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any
And
questions
maybe
you might have?
let me look at it again. So okay, I'm gonna do the training just today even.
So the run, then again, I would do like twice a week, once a week.
Oh yeah, that's put it here to the run. I don't think I'm on a running state yet. Let's see. I ran once in the last year and a half.
Right. So this, and again,
It
this
could
is
be
coming
fast
from
pace.
exactly fast-paced walk, whatever fits those parameters that I described. So
Hmm.
you might think of these as boundaries for you to watch. So when you hit that wall, you can come back down into that
Hmm.
zone.
Hmm. Also, I might ask your help for this too because I want to do some training, but
Yep.
everybody I talk to, trainers, they don't get it, because it's not just about light training, it's the right training. And I think I'm taking COVID as an opportunity to think about exercise in a different way.
Mhm.
Some things happen to me like intuitively, like almost every day now. Only when I have a bad night that I don't do it. Singing and dancing a lot in the morning, and
Sweet.
that has been very restorative. And it's funny because it started with yoga, and they had those high pitches mantras sung by women.
Hmm.
And I started, and you have to sing it like 3 times before yoga. And I started to sing like maybe 20 minutes because it felt so good. And then I started dancing a little bit because I had to move. And some days I was just tired of, because what happened with me is people are giving you instructions all the time, right? Because you have to do this, you have to do that. I think in your case, I think it's so spot on with what I need that it's okay. But she was giving me a lot of yoga therapy and then lots of diet recommendations. And at a certain point, there's no pleasure in your day, because you have to do so many things. And
Right.
then dancing
It's
for me
not
was that,
it's not
yeah,
manageable. For the
yeah,
most things that I did with my clients was, okay, what can you manage? What does your life allows you? And then let's work with
hmm,
that.
uh-huh,
And this is again, nobody has to do these things. Like
hmm,
they are battling COVID and post-COVID syndromes as they
hmm,
can. I'm sure of it.
hmm,
This this is just shows that some part that they might experience can have a more direct effect on their states,
hmm.
and then
Yeah, so
anybody
this is
can
what I'm doing
decide.
right now. I decided to give myself parameters to try to do it every day. 20 minutes on bad days, 50 minutes on good days. So 20 to 50 minutes, I'll sing and dance at the same time. And it's very good. It's very good. And then I'll do a walk in the afternoon from 1 hour to 1 hour and a half. If I can do it for some reason because it's raining or I didn't have time, I'll do maybe 20 minutes to 40 minutes on the elliptical because we have one here. I don't love it, but it's a good hack. You
Right.
move and
And
get
so the
your,
light aerob work, you can do it on the elliptical as well.
yeah.
It's just
Hmm.
giving yourself,
Instead
so it's
of
the same
going
thing.
for a run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's the
But
same
the run
thing.
is more fun, right? Like
You get
you can
outside, you're
go out.
moving. So
Yeah.
and that's another thing actually that the run does that the elliptical doesn't. You go from A to B. So
Hmm.
your body
Yeah. So
is
you
actually
really getting information about moving in space and
right. So your
it's
body is
good.
actually rewarding you with some dopamine to, okay, I can
Yes.
look back and be proud of myself that I went so far.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So I was looking for help in finding a good exercise for me for the next months. Maybe you can
Okay.
help me there too.
Sure.
Yeah.
What would be your goals? Like, would it be something strength related or muscle tone wise? Do you have any pains
I
that you would like to
I
counteract?
totally need strength because I'm 54, going 55, and I
Hmm.
lost a lot of muscle, a lot.
Okay.
I also need to
So,
lose weight because my whole life I was either 54 kilos to 58 when I'm 61 now. I
okay.
never got so fat in my life, so I have to lose weight. So yeah, those are good. And of course, I have all the normal goals. I want to get back my aerobic capacity and lose weight and gain mass muscle. So it's all
Right. So is the
everything.
same thing. Yeah,
But
yeah.
I want
But
I want to find something fun and sustainable. I think I pushed myself too much before. I love
so
biking. I love biking, and I can't imagine myself on top of my bike anymore. I don't feel like I have the coordination and the strength. Nothing.
and it's gonna come back, and the
I
more you
know.
can, and the more you can, for example, with the second step, like you can put yourself into that safe spot of doing some proactive work and building your
Mhm.
capacity with those boundaries.
Mhm.
You will get to that spot that, okay, I'm just recreating this on the bike. Because if
Mhm.
you're in that state, then you are having the coordination.
Mhm.
Coordination is happening more on the parasympathetic side than on the sympathetic side. So you
Mhm.
can teach your body how to
That's why
stay
I feel it's
calm.
so shocked. Yeah.
So
That's why
when you
yeah. Because
and
I didn't
again,
even
it's
try to bike, but something in me feels that I don't know how to bike anymore. Like it's
and
odd.
that's that, yeah, and that's the feedback loop of it. So you're already in a mild state of freaking out, and also thinking forward what's going to happen. which is pushing that state even more, then maybe getting yourself on the bike and looking for feedbacks. Yeah, I'm shaky and I can't do this. So that just blows it out of proportion. Whereas again, focusing on the not on the stuff that is going bad, but actually having your safe space with your breathing, with your mindset, and okay, what you're looking for, and just doing it, that's going to result you that you're going to do the best bike riding that you can do at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But because
But
you're
I'll
doing
leave
the
it
bike
for
riding,
maybe 1 month, after a little bit of, yeah.
that's good. But also
Um,
you can either push yourself through these things that okay, not caring about the freaking out and just push, but that's tension. That's tension that's
yeah,
forcing away those thoughts
that's
and
that's
emotions.
what I'm using COVID for, changing the way I did things with lots of stamina and pushing through. When my actual strength, it was always creativity and laid back things.
Right.
I was
Yeah.
pushing myself the wrong direction, for me, I
Right.
think,
So if
because I
you're
could
doing
do it.
yoga,
I felt like I could, but
I would advise you trying out Vinyasa Flow and Vinyasa Flow sessions
mhm,
and sun salutations. They're just really good. So anything
mhm.
that is cyclical.
uh I cannot do those anymore. I have no strength. I
You're
know it's
right,
gonna
right.
come back, but yeah,
That's
I
one
can
is
do
one
just
thing.
the
That's one thing,
simulated. Yeah.
but also like okay, chaturanga. How far does that go down?
Hmm.
Is that
It
chaturanga
doesn't.
if I yeah, but is that chaturanga if I only go down 5 centimeters?
Yeah, it is.
Right. But if I got used to that, okay, my chest has to be like this close to the ground in order for that to count, which
Hmm.
which some trainers or some teachers might tell you, but it's physiologically, if you're not there, then you're actually just hurting yourself.
Hmm. Exactly.
It's
Hmm.
the same thing as doing a push-up. I know
Hmm.
it's not a push-up, and it's that there are different things in there, but when teaching the push-up, only looking at the shoulder, so this is like only
Hmm.
focusing on that part. If somebody is going further where they can keep their pecs active, and it's happening with the women a lot, especially in yoga, that's why they get shoulder pain, and that's why you can see people with like rolled forward shoulders because their chest is just too short,
Hmm.
because physiologically, evolutionary, their chest muscles just don't get as big as
The the back muscles. Hmm.
not even that. Just for men, the pectoralis muscle it just grows bigger,
Hmm.
but they can use their chest muscles just not up to that point sometimes. But if you keep going overboard again, they're gonna hurt themselves, and they can never reach that level where they're gonna go down chest to almost touching the ground.
Hmm.
But if you do like up until the point where your chest is activated, for example, going down in chaturanga, that's 2 centimeters, for example, and from there
Hmm.
you're doing the upward facing dog, still it's the same thing,
Hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
it's the effect of that is the same thing. For some
Hmm.
guy, it's handstands. For some guys, it's a plank. But
Hmm.
the effect, that guy has to do that handstand because that's eliciting that same effect
For the other
that's
guy.
a plank for me.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's where the miscommunication sometimes happens, that sun salutation looks this, that yoga
Hmm.
is poses,
Hmm.
asanas. Not really. Asana was never meant to do those things. It was only to get you fit enough to meditate and sit straight for
Yes.
5 hours
Uh-huh. Hmm.
or more.
It was just a means to an end. Yes. Hmm.
Right. And again,
Okay.
to create that internal state, if you're getting into that flow, you really need to move in safe positions, whatever that means for you.
Hmm.
Because again, you're creating safety
Hmm.
by having that predictable movement. That's why the cyclical movement creates that flow pattern,
Okay.
because the body
I got
can
you.
predict what is coming next.
Okay.
But if it goes out of hand, you know, it in positions that I don't have muscle tension, but it's actually bone on bone and bone on ligaments and bone on in the, what is that?
What
Like in the
are you
ankles,
trying to?
knees, like ankles, knees, hips,
What?
in the joints.
Joints?
Yeah,
Joints.
joints.
Mm-hmm.
So tension in the joints, because the bones are just pushing against the joints, and there's no muscle tension that's holding the space in between those parts. Then the body is again starting to freak out because it's feeling the pain. It's sometimes it's so
It
little
feels
that's, you
it's
know, it's just
dangerous.
whispering. Exactly, but it's getting a little bit out of that that safety and sense of
Mm-hmm.
safety. So when
Okay.
you can hold muscle tension and you can do some repetitive work, that's gonna help you be in a safe spot. Yet
Mm-hmm.
again, I would advise, if you need or you have some regimen for, or you have already worked out in a gym setting with weights, then I would advise you to do that, focusing on large muscle groups.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so not really going on forearm or biceps per se. You can do biceps, not that, but the bigger muscle groups you can focus on, the better.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Like latissimus dorsi, like quads, like
Mm-hmm.
hamstrings, like butt muscles,
Mm-hmm.
pecs, and so on. So
Okay.
if you can do that and you can keep your breathing focused within the sets of that, so on the eccentric, breathing in through your nose, trying to keep a nose breath, but also when you're feeling that you're getting tired, then still controlled breath in through the nose and pursed lips.
Exhale.
So exhale. Exactly.
Like yoga. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
you know how that works. And then the pursed lips helps to really get the muscle tension just stronger.
Okay.
All
Good.
right. So, and
Great.
then you can start doing the little muscle work, and then that can start coming back as well.
Great.
But I wouldn't say
Okay.
like how much and how well. The internal state, that's what counts. Like if you can recover
Okay.
from that, you will have progress over time.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thank you. It was
You are
great.
welcome.
Great work. I'm gonna work on this and I'll let you know how it's going.
All right. Thank you for coming today
Thank you.
and having the questions. I think we covered some great topics, and I hope this video will get to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm gonna help you with that.
All right.
Thank you so
And
much.
you're very welcome. And so start workout, start tradings. If you have any questions coming up, and you will have experience when you start doing these things, let me know.
Okay,
Text to me. You
I
can write
will.
me email, or in Facebook. You can look me up, and we can chat,
Excellent.
and we'll go from there. All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye. You
Bye bye.
too. Ciao. Ciao. Bye.